What if the biggest obstacle in your life isn't your job, your past, your fears, or other people? What if it's you? That idea might sound uncomfortable at first, but sometimes the greatest breakthroughs begin with the hardest truths. The Mountain is You isn't a book about climbing real mountains. It's about overcoming the invisible ones inside us, the habits, fears, self-doubt, and emotional patterns that quietly hold us back from becoming the person we want to be. Hello, everyone. I'm Clara, and welcome back. Today, we're going to explore one of the most popular self-development books of recent years, The Mountain is You by Brianna Wiest. Through its powerful ideas, you'll discover why people self-sabotage, how emotional healing leads to personal growth, and what it truly means to transform your life from the inside out. At the same time, you'll naturally improve your English. You'll hear useful vocabulary, everyday expressions, and natural spoken English in context, helping you strengthen your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and become more confident when speaking English. Today, we'll explore 5 lessons from this inspiring book. Lesson number 1. Understanding why we self-sabotage. Lesson number 2. The hidden messages behind your emotions. Lesson number 3. Why healing is more powerful than motivation. Lesson number 4. Becoming the person your future needs. Lesson number 5. Climbing your own mountain. By the end of this episode, you'll not only understand the life-changing ideas behind The Mountain is You, but you'll also improve your English through one of today's most inspiring books. Let's begin. Before we continue, I have something that might really help you. If you're enjoying these lessons but sometimes feel like you need more practice, more structure, or someone to guide you personally, I've created the complete English fluency system just for that. Inside, you'll find everything organized in one place: premium lessons, English books, worksheets, speaking practice, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and much more. No more jumping from one random video to another. And the best part? You're not learning alone. Whenever you have a question or need help, you can contact me directly. I'll be there to support you throughout your English journey. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced learner, this program will help you build real confidence and make consistent progress. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, you'll find the link in the description. Now, let's get back to today's lesson.
Lesson number 1. Understanding why we self-sabotage. Imagine someone who desperately wants to succeed. They set ambitious goals. They buy new books. They create detailed plans. They promise themselves, this time, my life is going to change. Everything starts well. For a few days, they're motivated. They wake up early. They exercise. They work hard. Then, without any obvious reason, they stop. They skip one day, then another. Soon, they're back where they started. Have you ever wondered why people sometimes become their own biggest obstacle? That's the central question of The Mountain is You. Brianna Wiest argues that self-sabotage isn't proof that you're lazy or incapable. Instead, it's often a sign that a part of you is trying to protect you. At first, that sounds strange. Why would anyone sabotage their own success? Here's a useful English expression: get in your own way. Native speakers use this expression when someone creates problems for themselves instead of moving forward. For example, she had all the talent she needed, but she kept getting in her own way. Many people believe self-sabotage happens because they don't want success. The book suggests something different. Often people want success, but they're afraid of everything that comes with it. Imagine someone who dreams of starting a business. They spend months talking about it, researching, planning, watching videos, reading articles. But when the moment finally arrives to take the first real step, they hesitate. Not because the dream disappeared, because action feels uncomfortable. Success would bring responsibility, new expectations, the possibility of failure, and sometimes our minds prefer familiar discomfort over unfamiliar uncertainty. Psychologists describe something similar with the idea of the comfort zone. People often think the comfort zone is a place where life feels wonderful. That's not always true. Sometimes the comfort zone is actually painful, but it's familiar, and the human brain often prefers what is familiar over what is uncertain. Think about someone who stays in a job they dislike for years. Every day they complain. Every day they dream about doing something different. Yet they never leave. Why? Because the future is uncertain, and uncertainty can feel frightening. The same thing happens in relationships, in careers, in learning English, and in many other areas of life. Here's another useful English expression. Face your fears. It means to stop avoiding what scares you and deal with it directly. For example, he finally faced his fears and gave his first public presentation. The author explains that real transformation begins when we stop asking, "Why am I so lazy?" and start asking, "What am I trying to protect myself from?" That's a completely different question. Maybe you're afraid of failure. Maybe you're afraid of success. Maybe you're afraid people will judge you. Or perhaps you're afraid that if you truly give your best and still fail, you'll have no excuse left. Those fears are rarely obvious. Most of the time, they operate quietly beneath the surface. Let's connect this to learning English. Many learners say, "I want to speak English fluently." But when they finally have the opportunity to speak with a native speaker, they become silent. Why? It's usually not because they don't know enough English. It's because they're afraid of making mistakes, afraid of embarrassment, afraid of sounding imperfect. Ironically, avoiding the conversation keeps them exactly where they are. The very thing they fear becomes the reason they never improve. That's self-sabotage. Before we finish this lesson, I'd like you to ask yourself one simple question. What's one goal you've been delaying? Not because you don't want it, but because you're afraid of what might happen if you actually pursue it. Take a moment to think about your answer, because awareness is the first step toward change. You can't climb the mountain in front of you until you recognize the mountain inside you. And that's exactly where true transformation begins. Lesson number 2, the hidden messages behind your emotions. Imagine you're driving home after a long day. Everything is going well. Then another driver suddenly cuts in front of you. Within seconds, your heart starts racing. Your hands tighten around the steering wheel. You're angry, really angry. Now here's the question. Was it really just that one moment that caused such a strong reaction? Or did that moment simply uncover emotions that were already there? This is one of the most powerful ideas in The Mountain Is You. Brianna Wiest explains that emotions aren't your enemies, they're messages. And if you ignore those messages, they'll often return again and again until you finally listen. Here's a useful English expression: bottle up your emotions. Native speakers use this expression when someone keeps their feelings inside instead of expressing or understanding them. For example, he bottled up his emotions for years, and eventually the stress became overwhelming. Many of us grow up believing that certain emotions are bad. Anger, fear, sadness, disappointment. So instead of understanding them, we try to hide them. We distract ourselves. We stay busy. We scroll through social media. We watch television. We convince ourselves everything is fine. But emotions don't simply disappear because we ignore them. Imagine your emotions are like the warning lights on a car's dashboard. If the engine warning light turns on, you have two choices. You can cover it with a piece of tape, or you can find out what's causing the problem. Covering the light doesn't fix the engine. Ignoring emotions works the same way. The feeling disappears for a moment, but the real problem remains underneath. Psychologists often describe emotions as signals, not commands. That's an important difference. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately. Imagine you're angry. That emotion is giving you information. Perhaps one of your boundaries has been crossed. Perhaps you're exhausted. Perhaps you've misunderstood the situation. The emotion is asking for your attention. It isn't asking you to shout at someone. Learning to pause before reacting is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Here's another useful English expression. Take a step back. It means to pause and look at a situation more calmly before reacting. For example, before making an important decision, she decided to take a step back and think carefully. That's exactly what emotionally intelligent people do. They create a small space between what they feel and what they choose to do. Let's connect this to learning English. Imagine you're speaking English with someone. You make a small grammar mistake. Immediately, your mind says, "You're terrible at English. Everyone thinks you sound stupid. You should stop talking." Those thoughts create embarrassment, then fear, then silence. But here's the truth. The mistake wasn't the real problem. The story you told yourself about the mistake was. A confident learner makes the same mistake, laughs, corrects it, and continues speaking. Two people, the same mistake, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't English ability, it's emotional awareness. The author also explains that many emotional reactions come from old experiences, not just present situations. Imagine someone who was constantly criticized as a child. Years later, even gentle feedback at work may feel like a personal attack. Not because the feedback is harsh, but because old emotional patterns are still influencing the present. Understanding this doesn't change the past, but it changes how you respond today. Instead of asking, "Why am I feeling this?" try asking, "What is this feeling trying to teach me?" That simple question transforms emotions from enemies into teachers. Before we finish this lesson, here's a challenge. The next time you experience a strong emotion, don't immediately react. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling? Why might I be feeling this? What is the healthiest response I can choose? Those few seconds of reflection can completely change the direction of a conversation, a relationship, or even your life. Because emotional growth doesn't happen when you stop feeling emotions. It happens when you finally learn how to understand them. Lesson number 3. Why healing is more powerful than motivation. Imagine waking up tomorrow with unlimited motivation. You feel excited, confident, ready to change your life. You promise yourself, from today, everything will be different. Now imagine something else. 3 weeks later, the motivation is gone. Life becomes stressful again. Old habits quietly return. Have you ever noticed how motivation comes and goes? Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days, even the simplest task feels difficult. That's why The Mountain Is You teaches something surprising. Real transformation isn't built on motivation. It's built on healing. Here's a useful English expression. Carry emotional baggage. Native speakers use this expression when someone continues carrying emotional pain from past experiences instead of letting it go. For example, after years of disappointment, he realized he was carrying emotional baggage that affected every relationship. Many people spend years trying to change their behavior. They focus on what they do. Very few stop to ask why they do it. Imagine a tree. Every day, you notice that its leaves are turning brown. You decide to paint the leaves green. From a distance, the tree looks healthier, but underneath, the roots are still damaged. Soon the leaves become brown again. Why? Because the real problem was never the leaves, it was the roots. According to Brianna Wiest, many of our habits work exactly the same way. Procrastination, anger, people-pleasing, constant self-doubt. They're often symptoms. The real cause lies much deeper. Perhaps someone grew up believing they were never good enough. Perhaps they learned to hide their emotions. Perhaps they experienced rejection that they never truly processed. Years later, those experiences continue influencing their decisions without them even realizing it. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional conditioning. Our brains learn patterns from past experiences. If something once protected us, our minds may continue using the same strategy, even when we no longer need it. Think about someone who was laughed at every time they spoke in class as a child. As an adult, they avoid public speaking. Not because they're incapable, because somewhere deep inside, their brain still believes speaking is dangerous. Let's connect this to learning English. Many learners say, "I understand English, but I'm afraid to speak." Often the problem isn't grammar. It isn't vocabulary. It's fear. Maybe they were corrected harshly. Maybe someone laughed at their pronunciation. Maybe they compared themselves to fluent speakers and felt embarrassed. So now, every time they have the chance to speak, their brain remembers those uncomfortable experiences, and it chooses silence. The author reminds us that healing doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. It means refusing to let the past control your future. Here's another useful English expression. Let go. It means to stop holding on to something that's hurting you so you can move forward. For example, after years of blaming himself, he finally learned to let go and start again. Learning to let go doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. Sometimes it begins with forgiveness, sometimes with honest conversations, sometimes by accepting that you cannot change what happened, but you can choose what happens next. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is this: your past explains you. It does not define you. There's a big difference. Understanding where your fears come from can help you become kinder to yourself, but staying trapped in those fears only gives them more power. Before we finish this lesson, I'd like you to reflect on one question. What's one belief about yourself that you've accepted as true, even though it may have come from someone else's opinion? Maybe you've been telling yourself, "I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I'll never be fluent in English. People like me don't succeed." Now ask yourself one more question. Is that really the truth? Or is it just an old story you've been carrying for years? Because healing often begins the moment you stop believing every story your past has told you. And when those old stories begin to lose their power, you finally become free to write a new one. Lesson number 4, becoming the person your future needs. Imagine you're standing at a train station. 2 trains are waiting. The first train goes exactly where you've always gone. The same routine, the same habits, the same way of thinking. The second train goes somewhere completely different. It leads toward the life you've always wanted. The problem is, getting on that second train means leaving the familiar behind. Which train would you choose? At first, the answer seems obvious. Most people would say, I'd choose the second one. But in real life, many of us choose the first train every single day. Not because we don't want a better future, but because our current habits feel safe. One of the most powerful ideas in The Mountain Is You is this: your future isn't created by the person you are today. It's created by the person you're becoming. Here's a useful English expression: grow into someone. Native speakers use this expression when they mean gradually becoming the kind of person you want to be. For example, over the years, she grew into a confident leader. Notice something important. She didn't become a confident leader overnight. She grew into one. That's exactly how personal transformation works. Many people believe they must feel confident before taking action. The book teaches the opposite. You become confident because you repeatedly take action. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Nobody feels confident before getting on the bike for the first time. You wobble, you lose balance, you probably fall. But every attempt teaches your brain something new. One day, without even realizing it, you're riding confidently. Confidence wasn't the starting point. It was the result. Life follows the same pattern. The person you want to become already exists. Not in reality, but in your daily choices. Imagine 2 versions of yourself. The first version wakes up and immediately checks social media, delays important tasks, avoids difficult conversations, gives up whenever life becomes uncomfortable. Now imagine another version. This person wakes up with purpose, keeps promises they make to themselves, learns from mistakes instead of fearing them, chooses growth over comfort. Both versions begin with the same person. The difference is what they repeatedly choose every day. Here's another useful English expression: live up to your potential. It means to become as capable and successful as you have the ability to be. For example, his teacher believed he could live up to his potential if he stayed disciplined. That's a beautiful expression because it reminds us of something important. Potential isn't enough. Everyone has potential. What matters is whether we choose to develop it. Let's connect this to learning English. Imagine someone says, I want to speak English fluently. That's a wonderful goal. But then ask a different question. What would a fluent English speaker do today? Would they avoid speaking because they're afraid of mistakes? Probably not. Would they practice listening regularly? Almost certainly. Would they read, speak, and continue learning even on difficult days? Absolutely. Instead of asking, how can I become fluent? Ask, how would the future version of me behave today? That single question changes everything. The author also explains that transformation often feels uncomfortable because you're leaving behind an old identity. Imagine you've always believed, I'm shy, I'm disorganized, I'm not disciplined. Those labels become part of your identity. Then one day, you begin acting differently. At first, it feels strange, almost unnatural, not because you're becoming the wrong person, but because you're becoming a new person. Growth often feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. That's why so many people quit too early. They mistake discomfort for failure, when in reality, discomfort is often proof that change is happening. Before we finish this lesson, I'd like you to imagine yourself 5 years from now. Picture the person you hope to become. How do they think? How do they speak? How do they treat other people? What habits do they have? Now ask yourself one final question. What's one small thing I can do today that my future self would thank me for? Maybe it's reading one chapter, practicing English for 20 minutes, having an honest conversation, starting a project you've been postponing. Whatever it is, do it today. Because your future doesn't suddenly arrive one morning. It's quietly built. One decision, one habit, and one courageous step at a time. Lesson number 5, climbing your own mountain. Imagine standing at the bottom of a huge mountain. You look up. The top is hidden by clouds. The path is steep. The climb looks impossible. For a moment, you think, I'll never make it. Now imagine someone walking past you. They don't seem stronger. They don't seem smarter. They simply take one step, then another, and another. Hours later, they're much higher than you. Not because they climbed faster, because they started climbing. This is the final and perhaps the most important lesson from the mountain is you. The mountain isn't your past. It isn't other people. It isn't your circumstances. The mountain is the version of yourself that believes you can't change. Here's a useful English expression. Take one step at a time. Native speakers use this expression when they mean to focus on the next small step, instead of becoming overwhelmed by the entire journey. For example, recovering from failure takes time. Just take one step at a time. It's a simple expression, but it captures the heart of this book. Many people never begin because they're focused on the entire mountain. They think, I have to lose 30 kilograms. I have to become fluent in English. I have to build a successful business. I have to completely change my life. Those goals feel enormous, so enormous that they become frightening. The author reminds us that no one climbs a mountain in one giant leap. Every mountain is climbed, one step at a time. The same is true for personal growth. You don't wake up one morning as a completely different person. You become different because of the small choices you repeat every day. Imagine placing a single drop of water on a rock. Nothing seems to happen. Add another drop, still nothing. Then another and another. Months later, years later, those tiny drops have slowly shaped the rock. Small actions seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they become powerful. Here's another useful English expression. Keep moving forward. It means to continue making progress, even when life becomes difficult. For example, she didn't know exactly where life would take her, but she kept moving forward. That's exactly what Brianna Wiest encourages us to do. Not to become perfect, not to have every answer, simply to keep moving. Let's connect this to learning English one last time. Many learners compare themselves to fluent speakers. They listen to someone speaking perfect English and think, I'll never sound like that. But what they don't see is the journey behind that fluency. Thousands of conversations, thousands of mistakes, thousands of hours of listening, thousands of moments when that person also struggled to understand simple sentences. Fluency wasn't built in a month. It was built one lesson, one conversation, one mistake, and one improvement at a time. The same is true for every meaningful goal. Success isn't one dramatic moment. It's the result of ordinary actions repeated consistently. One of the most beautiful ideas in this book is that your mountain isn't there to stop you. It's there to transform you. Think about mountain climbers. By the time they reach the summit, they aren't the same people who stood at the bottom. The climb has changed them. They've become stronger, more patient, more resilient, more confident. Life works exactly the same way. Your greatest challenges often become your greatest teachers. The difficulties you wish would disappear may actually be preparing you for the person you're meant to become. Before we finish today's episode, I'd like to leave you with one final reflection. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. The future version of you smiles and says, "Thank you." You ask, "For what?" They answer, "For not giving up when life became difficult. For believing in us when nobody else did. For taking one more step, even when you couldn't see the top of the mountain." That future version of you doesn't exist because life suddenly became easy. They exist because you decided to keep going. So, whatever mountain you're facing today, whether it's learning English, changing your habits, healing from your past, building your confidence, or chasing a dream that feels impossible, remember this: you don't have to climb the entire mountain today. You only have to take the next step. Then tomorrow, take another. Because one day, you'll reach the top, look back, and realize something extraordinary. The greatest victory was never reaching the summit. It was becoming the person who was capable of climbing it.